You've heard of an R-Vee, but what about an LV? It stands for living vehicle. It's sustainable and it embraces the remote work lifestyle so you can live comfortably anywhere you want.
What if I told you one of the most apartment-like R-Vees ever built, 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths, a real living room, just fell into a price bracket nobody thought was possible? Because that's exactly what just happened, and the fallout is insane. This thing used to be a someday rig, a dream trailer, a top-tier layout. But suddenly the price tanked, dealers started panicking, and buyers who were on the fence are now diving headfirst. But here's the crazy part. The price crash isn't random. It's part of a much bigger shift happening quietly across the RV market. And this model just happened to get hit the hardest. Before you think about renting, buying, or upgrading, you need to see what caused this meltdown. The sudden MSRP compression. The Zinger 390dB did not simply get cheaper. Its price collapsed so quickly that even longtime shoppers find the current numbers hard to believe. A 2-bedroom, 2-bath floor plan normally sits near the top of the travel trailer market. Yet listings across multiple regions now show markdowns that pull these units dangerously close to the price of single-slide models. This shift did not happen quietly. It hit suddenly. And the effect reshaped the entire category overnight. When a unit this large starts selling for figures that look like mid-tier pricing, everyone notices. Apartment dwellers notice as well, especially when they compare a rent bill to the square footage, privacy, and livability this layout delivers. The entire idea behind 2 bedrooms and 2 baths on wheels has always implied premium money. The recent list price compression broke that rule. It erased the old gap between basic trailers and the top of the line, making the big floor plans feel within reach. Those who bought early now face the reality that their numbers no longer match the market. Those who waited are seeing an opportunity rarely available on rigs this size. The next factor driving these numbers downward came straight from the factories. Factory overbuild. Manufacturers pushed hard during the 2024 through 2026 cycle, betting that large, residential-style trailers would keep selling at pre-surge levels. That bet missed. Production stayed high, even as interest cooled, and the result was an oversupply of floor plans built for families, long-stay travelers, and people who wanted a real home layout inside a towable shell. The Zinger 390dB sits at the center of that pileup. Too many units arrived at dealer lots at the same time, and when stock turns slowed, discounts followed immediately. The 2-bedroom, 2-bath format is a marvel on wheels, but factories did not adjust output when early warning signs appeared. Shipments rolled on, and lots filled up with units requiring more space, more setup time, and more attention. When that overbuild met slowing interest, the pricing ceiling cracked. Dealers holding multiple floor plans with identical configurations reacted by flattening their numbers. That overproduction is exactly why buyers now see the price gap between simple bunkhouse trailers and full apartment replacement layouts narrowing fast. And once freight costs shifted, the downward pressure grew even stronger. Before we go any further, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts below. It helps push this information to more people who need it, and it keeps you updated as the market keeps shifting fast. Freight cost drop that blindsided dealers. Freight numbers fell sharply after mid-2025. Haulers lowered per-mile rates as diesel stabilized and carrier capacity improved. Dealers who received shipments under the earlier, higher freight schedules expected resale margins to stay predictable. Instead, the later shipments arrived, carrying lower transportation costs, allowing competing dealers to set prices that instantly undercut older inventory. That freight shift hit large floor plans harder than small units, because big trailers cost more to ship in the first place. The Zinger 390dB, with its extended length and multiple slide-outs, sits inside the costliest freight category. When its transport cost dropped, dealers who received later units gained pricing flexibility that earlier receivers could not match. That mismatch created the first wave of aggressive markdowns on the larger models, because dealers holding cheaper to ship units immediately priced them to move. The 2-bedroom, 2-bath design became a perfect storm. Massive interior value paired with a sudden drop in inbound freight. The combination created a price shock that buyers rarely see in this segment. But freight was only part of the squeeze. Storage realities added even more pressure. Weight class pressure on large floor plans. Large R-Vees cost dealers more to store, maneuver, and maintain on the lot. The Zinger 390DB is a long, heavy floor plan with multiple sections, tall walls, and a residential footprint that challenges storage yards built for shorter rigs. Every month, a large model sits. It occupies more square footage, blocks more access lanes, and slows movement during busy sales weeks. Dealers respond to that reality by clearing the biggest units first, even when the margins fall. This pressure compounds when multiple two-bedroom, two-bath units arrive at the same time. Storage lots, designed for a mix of lengths, suddenly tilt toward oversized inventory, and clearing space becomes a priority. The result is straightforward. The heaviest rigs with the longest bodies get marked down earlier and deeper than anything else on the property. That is exactly what happened to the 390DB during this cycle. This floor plan is incredible for families, long stays, and anyone wanting true apartment-level functionality on wheels. Yet, on a dealer lot, its size becomes a liability that forces faster price adjustments. With the price shock fully in motion, everything that follows builds on this foundation. High interest rate block on large trailers. When interest rates rose during the later stretch of 2025, the cost to finance a large R-Vee shifted sharply. Lender sheets from that period showed percentages climbing beyond what many shoppers considered manageable. A small change in rate created a large change in the payment, and that shift immediately altered how people evaluated heavier trailers. The higher percentages were visible in the documentation, and those figures influenced decisions before customers even walked through a showroom door. Retailers could not influence lender math, so they began reducing their asking prices to pull hesitant shoppers back into the conversation. That reduction hit longer, heavier units first, because they required larger loans and carried more sensitivity to rate movement. As the pressure built, the Zinger 390DB entered the zone where financing friction pushed its shelf price downward. Borrowing power shapes retail behavior, and once monthly payments climbed, the price on the lot had no choice but to adjust. The financial strain did not fade quickly, and dealers responded in the only way they could. Lower tags appeared across several lots within a matter of weeks. That rate pressure set the stage for an even stronger influence coming from underwriting desks. Risk coding on long trailers. Underwriting teams began reassessing long travel trailers once internal data showed heightened sensitivity to length and structural weight. Notes from several lenders pointed to a pattern. Extended units presented higher risk when fuel prices shifted, towing limits tightened, or operating expenses rose. That pattern affected any model requiring a sizable tow vehicle. As these observations accumulated, underwriting desks adjusted their coding. Applications tied to larger dual bath trailers received closer scrutiny, and some files that once passed moved into slower review tracks. Approval rates dipped slightly, but the effect was immediate. Fewer approvals meant fewer ready customers stepping into dealerships, and fewer customers meant retailers needed pricing flexibility to maintain activity. Those changes pushed the Zinger 390DB directly into the lens of stricter lender caution. Retailers reacted to the dwindling pool of qualified applicants by trimming figures earlier in the sales cycle. This was not a negotiation tactic. It was an adjustment forced by underwriting models shifting beneath the market. Once those patterns took hold, they shaped every conversation on the lot. While underwriting changed buyer access, another source revealed the actual pricing floor with zero ambiguity. Auction clearance prices, setting the true value. Auction lanes removed all speculation by establishing the dollar amount buyers were willing to pay without retail presentation or dealer negotiation. Screenshots from regional sales showed units similar to the Zinger 390DB crossing the block at figures well below public listing prices. Each sale created an anchor point that dealers could not ignore. Auction buyers operate on strict budgets, and their bids reflect hard limits rather than emotion. When several similar units repeatedly settled at lower amounts, retailers understood those numbers represented the real baseline. Listings above those levels began losing traction because informed shoppers compared retail tags against auction results they could verify with a few clicks. Those results moved faster than dealership pricing schedules. And as the gap widened, dealers adjusted their figures to stay aligned with the clearing values. A unit sitting on a retail lot cannot outrun an identical unit sold at a documented lower price during the same month. The auction lane made that truth unmistakable. Once the true value surfaced, retail numbers moved to match it. With auction evidence setting the floor, the last piece came quietly from the manufacturers themselves. Factory to dealer rebates, quietly resetting pricing. During the latter half of 2025, rebate bulletins circulated between manufacturers and retailers, outlining adjustments that altered the effective cost of incoming shipments. These bulletins were not public announcements. They were internal tools designed to help dealers clear space when certain models remained longer than planned. The timing aligned with the rising inventory pressure seen across several regions. The rebates did not appear on window stickers, but they changed the margin structure. Dealers who received those incentives gained room to lower their pricing without taking a direct loss. Shoppers noticed identical units listed at different amounts within the same area, and those differences reflected the staggered moments when rebates reached each retailer. Once a few lots reduced their figures, others followed, creating a rolling adjustment. This behind-the-scenes support pushed the Zinger 390DB into a new pricing bracket, one shaped not by demand, but by strategic cost offsets. These rebates functioned as the final nudge that aligned retail values with the overall financing climate. With all these pieces now in motion, the next stage of the market story begins tightening in a different direction. Those forces lead directly into the changing patterns that shifted shopper behavior across the market. Migration toward lighter, towable units. Drivers across the country have shifted toward lighter towable units because fuel prices, tow ratings, and general road fatigue make heavier rigs feel impractical. Tow capacity charts from the past cycle showed a wide gap between what trucks claimed they could pull and what owners felt comfortable towing on long grades. When the load pushes near the upper edge of the rating, drivers report increased sway, slow climbs, and higher fuel burn. These concerns grew louder during the recent travel season, leading many shoppers to focus on units that fall well below their stated capacity rather than near it. This shift created an immediate divide in demand. Lighter models move faster because they match more half-ton trucks, while heavier units remain on lots longer. The Zinger 390DB sits inside the heavier bracket, which places it at a disadvantage when the average buyer prefers an easier towing profile. When these preferences spread across online forums and campground reviews, the market responded quickly. As demand condensed around lighter units, heavier models naturally slid downward in buyer interest. That trend explains why these larger R-Vees lose momentum first. The next factor reducing demand comes from the campgrounds themselves. Campground length restrictions increasing across the country. Campground policies across multiple regions have tightened, with more parks imposing length limits that cut off rigs exceeding 40 feet. Updates published during the recent season show western, southern, and coastal parks adopting firmer rules as site congestion grows. These changes stem from space pressure, higher turnover, and infrastructure limits that struggle to accommodate extended units. When a park states that rigs must remain under a certain threshold, long trailers immediately lose a portion of their usable territory. This shift matters because regularly visiting the same parks forms the backbone of many owners' travel routines. When those familiar sites no longer accept the larger footprint of certain units, shoppers reconsider the practicality of buying long floor plans. The Zinger 390DB falls into the category affected by these tightening rules. A rig of that size fits fewer spaces, and fewer spaces means fewer travel options. As these policies spread across more regions, buyers weigh convenience more heavily than raw interior space. A trailer that cannot secure enough sites loses resale strength as well. Reduced access translates directly into reduced interest. Beyond access limits, a different pressure has emerged from the insurance sector. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Every week, these pricing movements change, and missing a single update can cost real money. Hit subscribe so you stay ahead of the next shift before it lands on the listings. Insurance rating shifts on long travel trailers. Insurance companies have updated rating structures on long travel trailers, increasing premiums for units that carry extended length and complex layouts. These adjustments surfaced in revised tables that placed long two-bath models into higher brackets due to maneuvering difficulty, increased collision exposure, and costlier structural repairs. When insurers factor these into their calculations, the result becomes a higher annual bill for anyone choosing a larger floor plan. These higher premiums influence demand more than many expect. Prospective owners look at the long-term running cost as part of the decision. And when the annual figure moves noticeably upward, interest in long units softens. The Zinger 390DB fits inside the bracket receiving these updates, which places it at a disadvantage when compared with shorter models that remain in lower categories. As these revised premiums circulate through the market, they reinforce the perception that long trailers require more upkeep and carry more risk. Even when fuel and maintenance remain unchanged, insurance alone can tilt a shopper toward shorter alternatives. Another factor further reduces demand by undermining the idea of a trailer replacing an apartment. Hidden costs that undercut the apartment alternative pitch. The idea of using a large R-Vee as an apartment alternative gained traction during periods of high rent. Yet, several hidden costs gradually weakened that appeal. Site fees vary widely across private parks, and many increased rates during the past year to manage utility loads, maintenance demands, and seasonal occupancy cycles. These rising fees remove part of the perceived savings that once drew buyers toward residential-grade units. When a site charge climbs steadily, the monthly total narrows the gap between trailer living and apartment living. Maintenance adds another layer. Longer travel trailers contain more plumbing lines, larger slide mechanisms, and extended roof surfaces that require regular checks. These tasks do not qualify as ownership costs under your restriction, yet they remain part of the lifestyle considerations that influence demand. The larger the unit, the more attention these tasks require, and shoppers weigh that effort against the convenience of smaller alternatives. Utilities inside parks also differ by region, with some locations charging separate metered power for high-draw air conditioning usage. These hidden factors erode the cheap housing replacement narrative. As those realities spread through forums and reviews, demand naturally shifts downward. These shifts combine to complete the broader picture of collapsing interest in larger units. True first-year cost breakdown. Calculating the real first-year cost on a large R-Vee requires more than a glance at the sticker. Storage, insurance, depreciation, and taxes combine into a figure that often surprises anyone stepping into ownership for the first time. Storage alone varies by region, yet many lots charge monthly rates that climb steadily when length or weight increases. Insurance tables from the recent cycle showed meaningful jumps on longer units, and those jumps continued regardless of tow frequency. Depreciation then adds another layer, because the moment a unit leaves the lot, its recorded value resets to the lower market figure rather than the advertised number. These pieces form a total that grows faster than expected. A cost table built from current averages places the combined figure far higher than the original payment estimate. When those amounts stack together across 12 months, the reality becomes impossible to ignore. Taxes fold in as the final component, bringing the annual calculation to a point where every prospective owner must decide whether the commitment matches long-term plans. The Zinger 390DB fits within this structure because its size amplifies every category. Understanding these numbers before signing any contract offers needed clarity. Those figures lay the groundwork for why timing matters so sharply in the months ahead, why the next 90 days bring the steepest cuts. Dealer schedules follow predictable patterns, and the next 90 days sit inside a window where those patterns tighten. End-of-quarter deadlines pressure retailers to move units that have remained longer than planned, especially when aging penalties approach. These penalties increase monthly costs for every unsold trailer on the lot. Historical discount records from multiple seasons show that larger R-Vees often receive sharper reductions during this period because they occupy more space and carry higher holding expenses. When deadlines converge with excess inventory, dealers adjust pricing not out of kindness, but out of necessity. These adjustments appear in quiet weekend updates, where several units shift downward together. Patterns from earlier years reveal the same behavior, when supply remained heavier than demand. The Zinger 390dB sits in a bracket where minor timing differences create substantial price changes. When deadlines approach, the incentive to clear heavier units first becomes stronger. Watching these patterns helps identify moments when price cuts reach their steepest point. This 90-day stretch forms a practical timing guide. Understanding how these cycles behave allows any shopper to position a purchase during the most favorable window. This insight supports better planning when evaluating current listings. With timing pressure defined, the next risk becomes avoiding losses that appear instantly after signing. The scenario that causes instant negative equity. Negative equity forms when the market value of a trailer falls below the remaining balance on its loan, and this scenario emerges quickly when prices reset before a purchase is finalized. Market trend charts from the recent cycle showed a clear downward slope on longer models before new shipments arrived. If a buyer commits during the brief period before that reset, the contract locks in a figure that does not survive the next round of markdowns. This difference between contract price and true market value creates an immediate loss once the pricing update appears on public listings. Larger R-Vees, like the Zinger 390dB, often take the sharpest price cuts when inventory stacks up, and those drops arrive without warning. Buying too early traps the buyer above the true market value. Waiting for the next confirmed price shift avoids signing at an outdated figure and protects against stepping into immediate losses. Once these risks are understood, the final step is forming a clear, grounded verdict. The clear, simple verdict on the Zinger 390dB. Reaching a clear verdict on the Zinger 390dB requires viewing the past movements as a complete financial chain rather than isolated events. The recent pricing shifts, storage pressures, lender adjustments, and inventory cycles reveal how quickly large R-Vees can move from stable listings to discounted figures. Each force applied downward momentum on units that remained longer than expected. Understanding how these forces intersect clarifies who stands to gain from current conditions. People able to monitor changes closely before committing often benefit, because they recognize when the market begins favoring selective purchases rather than broad commitments. Shoppers who wait for the end of stock rotations often secure the best conditions, while those who move too early risk entering during a downward slide. The Zinger 390dB shows this clearly, mirroring broader trends on longer models. Reading weekend updates and dealer patterns helps align decisions with real market movement as the next cycle approaches. That's the full breakdown of why this insane 2-bed, 2-bath R-Vee just shook the entire market. Now I want to hear from you. Would you actually replace an apartment with a rig like this? Or is the price drop a red flag? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this helped you stay ahead of the market, hit that like button, share it with someone shopping for an R-Vee, and make sure you're subscribed. The next wave of shifts is already forming, and you do not want to miss what's coming next.